Hello, and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for Displaced. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communications, as well as moderator for this conversation. We're very pleased to be joined by the director of Displaced, Gil Cates Jr. Gil is joining us from Los Angeles today. Hello, Gil, and welcome.
Hey Eric, how you doing? Thanks for having me and thanks for having the film.
I'm doing fine, and you're quite welcome. This is just a very interesting film. It's a story that's still being written. And just tell us briefly, how did you get connected with this family and decide to make a film about it?
So my background is in filmmaking, independent filmmaking and otherwise, and I've done a few documentaries. The last 10 years of my life have largely not been directly in filmmaking. I've been more in theater. And somebody that I knew from years ago, this person's mother reached out to me on Facebook and said, like right after the war started, and said, hey, I know this is super random. You haven't heard from me in a while. There's a family of 9 Ukrainians in Sherman Oaks, in an apartment, and they're looking for someone to help them and also to help tell their story. And I thought of you. And I was like, I sympathize and empathize with the family, and I wanted to help them regardless, whether I could actually do a documentary with my full-time job here, where I work at the Geffen Playhouse and other things going on, family and otherwise, and just work in general. But I wanted to help. So I took a Zoom call with this woman that I got connected to, who's owned the apartment where this family of 9 was staying, and met Petro. And we spoke, and I was very moved by what he had to say. And basically he said to me, we all see the atrocities of war, and obviously it's going on again right in front of our eyes right now. The physical atrocities of war. He's like, but the psychological atrocities, like it's not that one is comparing with the other. People are getting limbs, lives are being lost. It's terrible. But there's also the like psychological atrocity of having, children and family, and like, what is it like for them just to get up and leave? And it's like, you left your favorite trophy or doll or memory, or like, and you may never see it again. And now you come to a place where you speak in a moment's notice, you don't understand anything, and what that's like. And so I was like, that is really interesting. And a friend of mine who's a camera person, and I said, do you want to go tomorrow and sit down and talk to this family? And, I'm thinking about doing a documentary and helping them. And really the satisfaction ultimately came. So it was random. It was just like so many things in life are. It was a reach out via Facebook message. The thing I'm most proud of, even as much as the film, was just that I was able to help them, and to help them, directly and indirectly find 2 houses that they lived at for a year, with no rent, and their kids went to school, and was really proud of that. And then the film, I think about them a lot now, just because there's so much stuff happening there right now, but of course it's being overshadowed internationally by what's taking place in the Middle East. And there's still some terrible things going on there. And it's, that's what's been on my mind the most, just in terms of like, so in that way, I'm glad to have captured a film, because I think it's relevant to any situation, where you are displaced from your home and needing to start a life somewhere else. And I think that's universal. And that's what intrigued me. In addition to, of course, developing feelings for this family and these kids and who I got to know. And, so that's how I got involved. I wasn't looking to make a documentary about refugees. The moment was placed in front of me, and I decided to move forward with it.
So you met the family and you decided you're going to make this documentary, and documentary filmmaking, has different approaches. Did you go into this documentary knowing what you wanted to, what story you wanted to tell, or you just decided just to interview them and then tell the story? Tell us a little bit about your approach.
Both, but mostly the like, let's just start rolling and see where we go. There wasn't the time to be like, hey, I'm going to do a documentary about, the Beatles. Let's research for 6 months and then decide who we want to interview. I mean, this was like war started. They were here, 15 days later, and 48 hours after I was introduced to them, while they were still in the apartment, which I also thought was important for the story, to start the interviews there. And I was able to do that because 2 days later they had to leave that apartment, and then they didn't know where they were going to go, and we were able to help find them a house that they could stay at for a while, just with the good fortune of good humans. But no, it was really just like, let's just start talking. And then the more we started talking, the more, there were different avenues and different ways that it could have gone. But it was really just I didn't have a storyboard or a story or an outline. I mean, it literally within 48 hours was over there, just rolling cameras, meeting them, talking to them. And then sometimes you get lucky in terms of what could be on camera, not having to recreate moments. Like the moment where I called my friend Howard, who also helped put the film together, helped fund the film, was able to find housing for them in this complex where he lives. He was able to share that information with me and me with them while the camera was rolling. I was able to hit speakerphone, or speaking to the woman who's fairly senior at LAUSD, telling me how the kids could enroll in school. Like those weren't, which so often they are in kind of a reality TV world, scheduled, like, hey, let's make this at 4 because we're going to be rolling cameras. Like that just happened because I went over there and the phone happened to ring and it was him, and it was so we were able to capture some of that early stuff. And I think the reaction to that from the family and was valuable. So some of it is preparation and some of it is, I don't want to call it crisis luck, but you know what I mean? Like just put your best foot forward and hope that things work out just in terms of telling the story. So we definitely got lucky with a couple of moments that happened in real time, which easily could have happened. I'm at my office, pick up the phone, and, I would have already told them, hey, we got this situation, and, but let's film it tomorrow. And so I think starting the process and not being able to keep that authenticity was helpful.
It indeed was. And just the bravery of the family to be willing to talk about this, because they still were probably experiencing the trauma of, leaving their home country and here, and now cameras in their face. So it's very interesting. So how much time did you actually spend with the family in terms of filming?
I'd say, I met with them within a few days when they got to LA. So from that moment until when they left was about a year. I'd say filming wise, maybe on and off for 4, 5, 6 months. It wasn't like regular daily filming, but if there was something coming up or they were going to go speak or learn, or, we tried to, there's stuff we didn't use. It is a short film. You and I were talking earlier, you kind of have to pick which path you want to go. And even 28 minutes can be long, which is what it was. Long, not being emotionally like, oh man, this feels long, but just in terms of like the amount of time you have to tell a story. And there was, again, things captured that would have been forced to use. And it would have been like, well, we've shot it, we might as well use it, but it would have disrupted the flow of the story. So I think, but yeah, on and off for 6 months, but I was always in their lives, and we're still on a WhatsApp group chat, and we're still, so for me, it kind of merged, like the filming, but also helping them get their next house. And then when they made the decision that they needed to go back to Ukraine. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about this story, and because you can only put so much into the time that you gave the film. What for them to end up in LA, was it a matter of their preparation, a little bit of luck, contacts, or what got them to LA?
They were never even planning on coming to America. They were heading, they were leaving, they went to Prague, and there was a lot of fear of a nuclear explosion, which I didn't know this before. The largest nuclear site in Europe is in Ukraine. And there's videos, and you see some of it in the documentary, of like missiles and rockets just flying right over it and right next to it. And if that compound had been exploded, I forgot the exact number, but it would have been, 20 times worse than Chernobyl. And the family of 9, it was, mom and dad, as you saw, Olga and Petro, their 3 kids. And then it was Petro's father, and his wife and children. And Petro's father, the kind of elder statesman of the group, kept pointing out, we got to keep going. Like, now that we're out of Ukraine, if this thing is hit, like, we're not good in Poland, we're not good in Prague, we're not good. Like, this is going to be catastrophic. So they just kept going, and then they ended up in Mexico, and then they ended up in Los Angeles, and they crossed the border, and there were people that were waiting for them there. And the person who owned the apartment building that the 9 of them were staying at, Michelle, who I ended up producing this documentary with, her sister or sister-in-law was one of the people who greeted families in San Diego. And she called Michelle, and she's like, there's a family of 9 just heading to LA, and they have nowhere to go. Michelle's like, well, they can come to my place for a little bit. And then, so they didn't set out to come to Los Angeles, and they're not here now. I mean, I would talk to them. If they were going to come to the US, I don't know if LA is the best place, maybe, I mean, just, Cleveland, Portland, Nebraska, Kansas. I don't know. Like, it's an expensive place to live, and depending what you want. And we had really lovely people help them, but I think they realized that, like, the things that they had the time they were here weren't going to be what the next 10 years of their life would have been. And because they had degrees and doctors, and she was a nurse, it would have taken them, and I'm going slightly on a different path here, but just to share, it would have taken them a decade to get back to where they were medically, where they were in Ukraine, where they had a clinic and they could help people. And so ultimately they decided to go back, because the path here, the dad, who was a doctor in Ukraine, was bagging groceries at the grocery store here, and so yeah, they made a decision not to bury the lead, but they're back in Ukraine now.
So all 9 of them went back to Ukraine?
Great question. 5 of them went back to Ukraine, and 4 of them are still here.
Okay. And the ones that are back in Ukraine, do you know how they're doing? Are they safe?
They're as safe as can be. They're as safe as somebody in Tel Aviv right now. They're as safe as, like, we think we're safe, or Palestine, or I don't mean to get political, just because I know someone that lives in Tel Aviv. That's why Tel Aviv came to mind. But I just feel like it's as safe as anywhere where there's a war around you, and it only takes one, wrong moment, but they are happier and more content, because they are in their home, and they're doing what they are doing. And so that part of the security of being there with Olga and Petra and the 3 kids, that's the group that's back.
Right. And I know the kids wanted to go home. They mentioned that in the documentary. They missed their, activities and so forth, even though, yeah, so interesting. So are there any plans to continue this documentary, to make it into a feature? The story isn't over yet.
Only if you fund it, Eric. If you fund it, let's make it. No, there is no plan. There is a plan for me to continue to be in touch with the family and do whatever I can. There's no plan to turn their story into a longer documentary or anything. I think part of them would like that. And it would be interesting to go. I've never been to that part of the world, and I've never been to Ukraine, and to go there and film. But that's not on the agenda right now. And I think part of even having this conversation with you and what you all are doing is that's part of the gift of the journey, just being able to, like, explain one part of war. Like, we all see a lot of parts of war, but we don't always see that lane of just complete uplifting. It's like dropping you in a new planet. with new rules and new languages and new temperatures and new people, and so I think the mission accomplished in terms of this piece doing that. But if I'll always do whatever I can to help the Kovalchuks or support them. Like I said, we're on a group WhatsApp chat, and so we keep in touch, of course.
So now that this documentary has been completed, it's been on the film festival circuit, looking back on it now and looking at what's going on currently with the war, is there anything you would do differently, add in or take out?
It's a good question. There's nothing about what's going on in the Middle East, which is, again, just so much not good is going on over there, to say the least. But in terms of, maybe I would removed certain elements of the film. So instead of 28 minutes, it was 17 minutes or 15 minutes, just to make it more accessible for more people to see it. But I don't feel like, as a storyteller, if I was just like this is about telling their story and the way that they wanted it to be told and what I know is important to them, like I could go to sleep at night going, I did that. The producer part of me in my brain is like, oh, maybe, if it was 15, 17 minutes, it could be viewed more, easily, but that's the producer part of me. But in terms of like the director and part of me, there's not like a part where I am like, oh man, that's 2 minutes that wasn't worthy of being in there. I don't feel that way.
Okay, fair enough. As we're closing here, you ended the film with you told me it was a lullaby, and it was performed. Why did you choose to have this lullaby to end the film?
It's a great question. I mean, I think, like so many documentaries, and especially this one, like we were saying, there wasn't time to prepare. I wasn't sure how it was going to end. And one of the questions that we asked the family, and actually the DP, Ramon, this was his idea to do this. And at first I was like, I don't know why we would ask them, like if you could describe the journey in song. It felt a little arbitrary at first, but I was like, but it's interesting. And when Olga, the mother of the 3 children, told the story about the cherry tree outside the window, and it just felt, and trying to get in the house, and there was so much metaphor there, and it was so heartfelt and sweet when she sang it, and you could see the emotion that it just became like, we need to end. That's the end of the film. And then from there, I think it was Petro, her husband, who said, there's a version of this song from a Ukrainian songwriter, and he sent me, and I was like, oh, that's so great. Let's try to get the rights. And so we reached out to her, and she reached back, and we got permission to use the song, got the release. And so it just became the ending. Like there's so many ways these things can end, film wise, not life wise necessarily. And it just felt like, to me, the most poignant, and it just fell into place.
And indeed it did. Last question, what's next for you? Since you're not going to make a feature out of Displaced, you must be working on something else. What is that?
Me personally, Gil? So yeah, my full-time job is I'm the executive director and CEO of the GIFF and Playhouse in Los Angeles, which is where I am right now. And it's raining in LA, so don't let the people always say the weather's always beautiful here, though I don't mind the rain. So I'm at the Playhouse. It's an exciting time here. Theater is challenging, but also there's opportunity. And we have a new artistic director we're really excited about. So putting together, the future of the theater. And then I have projects that I am involved with in various capacity, on the side, if you will. I helped a friend produce a short film last week, and I have, this idea from years ago that this company's interested in, but I'm not proactively looking to like develop right now a slate of 20 things. Like the Geffen is my kind of heart and soul. And then sometimes, things will come up like this did. But I'm not currently working on another documentary. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do one again. The first one I did is right over my shoulder, Life After Tomorrow, That was about all the girls in the musical Annie from 1977, 1982. That, and then one small project in between, and then this, or those are the only documentaries I've ever made. So all of them came out of actual either desire or information or relatability, versus I want to do a documentary about this painter or this, which there's nothing wrong with, obviously. It's just not the way that I approach it with where I am in my life.
Well, great. Well, sometimes having projects find you can be even more special. So
this was one of those. This was one of those.
Exactly. We'll wait to see what next project will find you.
I appreciate it.
Gil Cates Jr., Director of Displaced, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all the best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you, Eric. You as well. You guys keep up the good work. I love what you guys are doing with the Film Slams. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about our upcoming film festival, please visit us at clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.